China-linked hackers are hitting North American critical infrastructure using 0 days in Sitecore and Cisco email gateways. And we've got a fresh batch of critical vulnerabilities hitting the databases today.
I'm Morgan. That's Alex. Let's break it down.
We're starting today with a critical SQL injection flaw in a niche but widely used piece of software. It's CVE 2025-70892. And it's hitting version 1.0 of the Phpgurukul Cyber Cafe management system.
Cyber Cafe management? That feels like a bit of a throwback. But I know those systems are still the backbone of public internet access in a lot of regions. If you can inject SQL there, you're basically getting the keys to the kingdom for every user who's logged in.
Exactly. The flaw is in the user management module, specifically the username parameter on the addusers.php endpoint. It's a CVSS 9.8 because it doesn't require any authentication to exploit. An attacker can just bypass the login entirely or dump the entire database.
It's that classic failure to validate input. You'd think by 2025 we'd have moved past basic SQL injection and management software, but here we are.
Speaking of things that feel like they're from a different era, we have 2 more criticals that just hit the NVD, but they carry 2021 IDs. First up is CVE 2021-47796, which affects the Denver SHC-150 smart Wi-Fi camera.
Wait, 2021? That's a 4-year-old ID. Why is this surfacing as news today?
It's one of those cases where the disclosure queue was backed up. Sometimes vendors take years to coordinate a patch, or the research just sits in a backlog before it's officially published to the database. But the threat is very real. It's a hard-coded telnet credential.
Hard-coded credentials in an IoT camera. That's the Mirai botnet playbook 101. If you can just telnet into a camera using a default password that's baked into the firmware, you've got a Linux shell and a perfect pivot point into a home or office network.
Right, and it's unauthenticated. Anyone who can see that camera on port 23 can take it over. And the second one from that same era is CVE 2021-47785. This one is in the Ether MP3 CD Burner version 1.3.8.
Ether MP3 CD Burner? Alex, are we sure we didn't accidentally travel back to 2005? Who is still burning CDs?
You'd be surprised. Legacy systems, archival workflows, people still use this stuff. The problem here is a buffer overflow in the registration name field. If an attacker crafts a specific payload for that field, they can overwrite the SEH handlers and execute a bind shell on port 3110.
So a 9.8 score because it leads to remote code execution. It's a good reminder that just because a piece of software feels old doesn't mean it isn't a viable entry point if it's still sitting on a workstation somewhere.
Exactly. Now, moving into the current threat landscape, we've got some heavy-hitting news about China-linked APTs. Cisco Talos is tracking a group they've named UAT 8837, and they've been targeting North American critical infrastructure.
UAT 8837. I was reading about this. They're using a mix of known vulnerabilities and 0 days. Specifically, they were caught exploiting a 0 day in Sitecore, right?
That's the one. Sitecore is a massive enterprise content management system. If you're a large utility or a government agency, there's a good chance your public-facing site runs on it. UAT 8837 used that 0 day for initial access, and then they moved laterally.
This feels like a broader pattern. We just saw Cisco release a patch for a different China-linked group, UAT 9686, hitting their secure email gateways. That was CVE 2025-20393.
Right. That Cisco flaw was a maximum severity RCE in the Async OS software. It's the same story. A 0 day exploited in the wild for about a month before the patch dropped. These groups are focusing heavily on the edge, email gateways, CMS platforms, things that have to be exposed to the internet.
It's the living off the land approach, but starting at the perimeter. If you're an admin for a critical infrastructure site, you aren't just looking for malware anymore. You're looking for exploited edge devices that look like legitimate traffic.
And while we're talking about clever ways to get in, researchers found 5 malicious Chrome extensions that are impersonating enterprise platforms like Workday, NetSuite, and SuccessFactors.
That is incredibly dangerous. Think about the average HR or finance employee. They're told to use Workday for their payroll or NetSuite for accounting. If they see an extension that claims to optimize or integrate those tools, they'll install it without a second thought.
And these extensions work in concert. They steal authentication tokens, which lets the attackers bypass multi-factor authentication. But the really nasty part? They also block incident response capabilities. They literally prevent the browser from reaching security sites that might help the user realize they've been compromised.
So they're blinding the victim while they're robbing them. It's a complete account takeover. We've seen this with malicious extensions before, but targeting ERP and HR platforms specifically, that's a direct line to sensitive corporate data and financial systems.
Switching gears to something a bit more frustrating for IT admins. Microsoft confirmed that the January Windows 11 security update, KB5074109, is causing the classic Outlook desktop client to freeze for users with POP email accounts.
The classic Patch Tuesday, Break Wednesday scenario. POP accounts are older tech, but plenty of small businesses still use them. If you're seeing Outlook hang or freeze after that update, you're not alone.
Microsoft is working on a fix, but for now, it's just one of those things that adds friction to the patching cycle. And finally, I wanted to touch on a piece by Bruce Schneier that's been making the rounds, looking back at Aaron Swartz's legacy in the age of AI.
Schneier's point about the corporate capture of knowledge is so relevant right now. Swartz wanted knowledge to be free. He famously downloaded those JSTOR articles to make them public. Now, we have AI companies doing essentially the same thing, but instead of making it free, they're vacuuming up that public knowledge to build proprietary models.
It's a massive contradiction. The government prosecuted Swartz for trying to liberate information, but now corporations are being given a relatively free hand to capture that same information for profit. It's a deep philosophical shift in how we view the public part of public knowledge.
It's a reminder that security isn't just about patches and APTs. It's about who controls the data and the knowledge we all rely on. Definitely worth a read if you're following the AI policy debates.
All right, wrapping up. If you're running Cisco Secure Email Gateways, get that patch for CVE 2025-20393 installed immediately. And if you're an admin, maybe do a quick audit of the Chrome extensions running in your environment.
Your daily AI-powered security briefing. If this saved you time, subscribe. We're here every morning.
Stay patched, stay paranoid.